Welcome to Swap School, where we take the mystery out of late model Hemi swaps. If you've ever looked at a Gen 3 Hemi swap and thought, there's no way it should be this complicated, well, you're in the right place. I'm Blake Andermann, and on this podcast we break down wiring, electronics, tuning, accessories, and everything in between step by step. This is so real enthusiasts can understand it without the headaches and all the nuances. Swap School is proudly sponsored by Sublime Technologies, the premier source for Gen 3 Hemi swap components, built by people who actually do the swaps. No gatekeeping, no guesswork, just real knowledge. Class is in session, let's get to swapping. Welcome back to Swap School, and today we are going to be diving into Tier 1 of the Hemi swap process. And it's arguably the most important decision you're going to make in your entire build, choosing the right engine and transmission. Why does Tier 1 matter? Let's talk about this. So why does it matter? Well, your engine and transmission choice is going to dictate quite a few things for you. Wiring complexity, your electronics integration, how are you going to mount it, your mounting solutions, your exhaust routing, everything that follows in the other 5 tiers of the Hemi swap process is going to build upon this. That's why it's very important that we get it right the first time and make a selection that's going to it's going to factor out as many possible errors and mistakes as possible up front. That's what we're trying to avoid. We want to get away from all these little pains and nuances that are going to drive you absolutely crazy down the road. That sounds complicated, but it really isn't. We're going to break it down simply and give you the tools to success. I promise you that. What we're going to do, let's look at it this way. We really need to break down engine and transmission selection into 2 categories. One is what I call modern vehicle Hemi swaps. Think of that as anything 2000-ish year model and newer. Those vehicles, they're going to have more complexities. CAN bus systems, control modules, could be a body control module, ABS module, trans control module, so many different things. Lots of things going on there. Anti-theft systems, integrations with creature comforts, stability control, cruise control, you name it. That is where the modern vehicle Hemi swap really gets tedious, because those modern creature comforts require a little bit more thought. I'll put it that way. Secondly, we have the vintage vehicle Hemi swap candidate. So if you're putting a Hemi in something older than, say, the 2000-ish year, you're going to have a lot more freedom. You're going to have really just a main focus on physically fitting it in the car and building the car around it. Because those modern conveniences and modules, they just don't exist. They're not there to trip you up. They're not there to cause problems. The hardest decision you're going to make probably is, do I feel comfortable cutting on this car or not? That's what it boils down to. With a modern vehicle swap, you're not just swapping an engine, you're integrating almost like a whole ecosystem. You want everything to speak the same language and work well with one another. You don't have that with a vintage swap. You really don't. There's nothing to communicate with. It's all pretty simplistic. It's just fundamentally different. So let's give you a couple examples here, and that'll really cause us to deep dive further into this topic. Let's say you have a 2012 Jeep, cheapo that we're working on right now. When I'm selecting something for a modern vehicle like that, the first thing that I want to do is I want to look for a powertrain that has a controller of ECM, a computer, whatever you want to call it, that is compatible with the vehicle. The 2012 Jeep Wrangler uses what we call a GPEC2 ECM. It's a 2-connector ECM that has a brown connector and a gray connector. Well, in the Hemi world, that ECM was offered from 2011 in cars all the way through 2014. So naturally, I'm going to try to pick a Hemi that falls in that window, because the control system for the Hemi will speak the same language as the Jeep. At that point, it's much more simplistic. All we have to do is put in the wiring harness, put the V8 ECM, the computer from a V8 car, into the Jeep in the factory spot, reprogram the VIN number in the ECM to match the Jeep, sync it up with the modules in the Jeep because it speaks the same language. Let's do a handshake, and that's it. It's more simplified. I would not put a 2005 through 2008 Hemi in that Jeep, because those older 4-connector NGC ECMs never really spoke well with that more modern CAN bus language. It's not as compatible, if that makes sense. That is a flavor of what we're talking about. You almost need to look at each engine year broken down with the engine, the reluctor wheel count, and the ECMs offered for that engine setup, and then cross-reference everything to match your particular modern vehicle. Let's now look at a 2005 Ram Rumblebee. Oh, it already has a Hemi in it. That's great. It has a Hemi in it, but we now want to do a swap to a 6.4 liter. Things are going to get interesting. The 6.4 liter had a different reluctor wheel on the crankshaft, a different computer system. Really, when the 6.4s came out, they had already migrated to a 2-connector GPEC2 ECM. So what do we do? How do we put the higher tooth count reluctor wheel Hemi of, say, the 6.4 variety? It could be an Eagle 5.7, or anything post, right? How do we put that in this 2005 Rumblebee? Well, we have a little window here. You see, in 2009 and 2010 in cars, 2009 through 2012 in trucks, they had an old style NGC ECM, but it had internal programming for the higher tooth reluctor wheel. So now we're going to start playing with some things. We're going to say, okay, I need this type of an ECM or computer, but with these parameters, this reluctor wheel count, so that I could put the 6.4 in the 05 RAM. 05 RAM it's still going to be a little dicey, because that is technically PCI communication, a Profibus communication, versus CAN bus communication. But the basis of it is still going to work pretty well. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? It's really not. It's almost as if we had a slide rule and we're just trying to navigate a path to what is going to communicate with the body and the system of that modern vehicle. That's what we're trying to do. Now let's take a step back and we'll look at something a little older. We're going to go and look at a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. With this vintage platform, the sky is almost a limit. Almost everything is going to fit between the fenders of a B-body. You have lots of mounting options out there. You have quite a few transmission choices in that specific car. You can run really any year. You want older 5.7s and 6.1s up to the more modern Eagle 5.7s and 6.4s, even the Hellcats, they all bolt in really easily. Lots of real estate, no spare modules to work with and communicate with. Very straightforward. The hardest decision you're probably going to make in that B body is deciding on your transmission selection and if you're willing to cut on the car's transmission tunnel. An 8 HP, 8-speed automatic will fit in the B body. You'll probably have to do a little bit of massaging on the trans tunnel and cut some casting ears off the transmission body itself, the housing itself. But that's it. It's going to fit. If you want to run a T56 6-speed manual, that's a very big transmission in diameter. Yeah, you're probably going to have to cut the transmission tunnel, widen it, and add a segment, add a splice panel to open up that transmission tunnel. It's part of it's the nature of the beast when you're working with those transmissions in those cars. Very straightforward. Do you want to cut on the classic car or do you not want to cut on the classic car? Fitment is everything in that second grouping in the vintage. If you have something really classic, we talk about in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, those vehicles that have really tight engine compartments, you may need to do an alternator relocation or even just opt to go with a truck engine that has a tighter accessory package because you have less clearance between the fenders. That's something that you could do. But again, just think of this. We are selecting the powertrain based on physically fitting it in the car and really nothing else. Does it physically fit? And is it going to give me the driving experience I want? Do I want to shift gears? Do I want an automatic transmission for cruising? Do I want a modern automatic for insane fuel mileage, performance, and cruising? You could do that. It's all up to you. But you see how it's more direct. It's more simplified. Modern Hemi swaps can be complicated, but they can also be very rewarding. Parts availability, interchangeability, hitting the junkyards and the salvage yards and getting little knickknacks and spare parts for your swap at very budget-friendly prices. It's a good benefit for doing a modern Hemi swap. So here is what you need to really take away from Tier 1. Your vehicle choice absolutely dictates your powertrain strategy. Modern swaps, your integration first mindset. You care about hooking up to everything in that vehicle and making sure it operates just like it did coming off of the assembly line. Vintage swaps, fitment first. If it fits, it ships. Right? The old adage. That's what it's about. Next up, we really need to talk about something else. Temptations. It's very tempting to pick up an engine because it was a good deal. It's very tempting to pick up an engine because of its clout, its stature, its aura about it, as us hot rodders look at these swaps. A Hellcat is really cool. The supercharger whine, the power, just the awe of popping the hood and seeing that blower sitting there staring at your face, looking at you in your eyes. That's incredible. I get it. Massive air intake if it's a red eye crammed into something that it never belonged in the first place. I get it. But just be forewarned that your emotions can lead you astray. Just because it's a phenomenal deal, just because it is the upper echelon of late model Hemi, It doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right engine for you. I love them all. 5.7, 6.1, 6.4, the 6.2 Hellcat. They're all really cool engine. They all make way more power than the old school engines, the old school small blocks back in the day. You really can't lose. So a lot of times when I'm speaking with customers and we're discussing their performance goals and their deliverable, their outcome, what they want to see. Let's just talk about it. What do you want to see? 9 times out of 10, the 5.7, the 6.1, and the 6.4 are completely satisfactory and more than enough for swaps out there. It really is. I joke about this. As much as I love the 6.2, as much as I love the Hellcat, I often ask people, I say, hey, I have a question for you. Do you want to spin the tires or do you want to annihilate the tires? Because either way, you're not going anywhere. So does it really matter? Spinning isn't winning. You can spin the tires a little bit. You could spin them a lot. You can spend a moderate amount of money, or you can spend a large amount of money. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Don't let that amazing deal get the best of you. Make sure it's truly what you want before you proceed down the path. There's nothing wrong with a Hellcat. There's nothing wrong with a 6.4. They're great engines. Shove them in anything. Have fun. But just know that emotionally charged decisions are probably going to hit your pocketbook down the line. And it's going to add complexity. If you're not afraid of either one of those things, hell, go for it. Doesn't harm anything. It's your project. Build the car the way you want to build it. But don't get caught up in emotions. Don't get caught up in a good deal because it could bite you in the rear end down the line. As far as costs go, we touched on that just a little while ago. The Hellcat's going to cost you probably 40 to 50% more than the 6.4, 5.7, 6.1 will. It's the truth of the matter. You have auxiliary systems that are going to come into play and more components that you have to cram into a tight package in most cases. There are supercharger coolant pumps. There's air-to-liquid intercoolers. There are charge air coolant pump hoses, so the manifolds on the back of the supercharger pump for coolant. You also have oil coolers and actual physical fitment of the engine itself. That supercharger can fit pretty tall, which comes into clearance issues with A-bodies and tighter engine compartments. The amount of more work involved and more components involved is going to significantly add to the cost of your build. So, let's say you are building, let's change it up this time. Let's say we're building an A-body, a 70 Dart. And we have a choice between a 6.4 at $6,000, or we have a Hellcat at, let's just say, $8,000. I've seen them go pretty low lately. They could be hot, I don't know, but I'm starting to see prices come down on base Hellcats. So right out of the gate, you're $2,000 to the advantage on the 6.4. The 6.2 Hellcat is going to have a more expensive ECU because it is different than the 5.7 and the 6.4. Add about $400 right there. The 6.2 fuel requirement is going to take at a minimum Dash 8 fuel line and a higher output fuel pump, like minimum 450 liters per hour. Why don't you go ahead and add $500 to $600 more? The 6.2 is also going to require the things I mentioned previously. The supercharger coolant pump, CAC, charge air coolant pump is what Chrysler calls it. At a minimum, a new one's about $1,000 from Chrysler. Used, you can probably score for 300-ish is average. You can also do aftermarket coolant pumps for about $200 or $300, but those costs stack up, as do the oil filter relocation in an A body, as does the oil cooling system, because you're really going to need to cool it down because you're in a tight, compact compartment, and those Hellcats generate a ton of heat. It adds up. Thousands of dollars more to spin the wheels just the way a 6.4 would. A 6.4 and 5.7 and 6.1, their costs, aside from the price differences in the engine, are about all equivalent. It doesn't matter. 500 horsepower is a lot for a 2,800 pound, 3,000 pound A body. It's a lot. It's a heck of a lot of fun, too. So, I digress. Food for thought. Key message on that is don't get caught up in emotions. Build what you want. Build what's going to make most sense for your vehicle and roll with it. Well, that is it for Lesson 3. We hope you enjoyed this segment today. If you have any deeper questions, please email us. It's blake@sublimeparts.com or blake@diyhemi.com. We have been getting emails lately. I promise I'm going to get to those and include them on an upcoming episode where we start reading listener emails. Class dismissed. Go forth and Hemi swap the world, everyone.